Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
Hi, OS, it's Only Sport. Welcome to the podcast. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. We do this every weeknight, and we do a live radio show on the Platform 1 till 4 every weekday. You've got to download the app to listen to us live. We're a radio station that's not really a radio station. We only broadcast across the interweb, the Platform. If you subscribe to Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to all of the shows right across the day, 9 hours of live programming every single weekday at your leisure and at your listening pleasure. Today, a couple of big issues. One of them, Angelo Mathews, the first ever batsman in international cricket to be timed out. It happened, Sri Lanka playing Bangladesh overnight in the ICC One Day World Cup. Well, what a toady nasty way to dismiss a batsman. He needed his helmet replaced, and they timed him out. We talk about that extensively. Mark Watson on the program, the ATM podcast, snippets of that, as well as we play Lachlan's favourite game. What is more chance of happening? Do the Tide 5. Talk about all kinds of stuff that have been going on. But first and foremost, when sport turns ugly, because the rules are an ass and the umpires don't have whatever it takes to use common sense to override them. But as always, we begin the program, tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Angelo Mathews is innocent. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What a toady, petty, low-rent, nitpicking way to be dismissed at a Cricket World Cup. What happened to Sri Lankan batsman Angelo Mathews versus Bangladesh last night is and was a blight on the game. Out for being timed out because he needed a new helmet. I totally agree with what Matthews said afterwards, that, and I quote, it was disgraceful from Shakib, who's the Bangladesh captain, and Bangladesh as a team. If they want to play cricket like that, it's a disgrace. He's right. He's 100% right. He goes on, I hadn't done anything wrong. I have 2 minutes to get to the crease and get myself ready, which I did, and then it was an equipment malfunction. And that's the point. Yes, the law is there, and it is a law, and it is there for a reason. You have 2 minutes from the fall of the last batsman to walk to the crease and be ready to face the next ball. Now, it's 3 minutes in all other cricket, but for some reason at ICC tournaments, it's 2 minutes. And it's there to stop deliberate time wasting and fanning around, which is fair enough. But when the guy's chin strap on his helmet breaks and he signals it and he needs another one, then calling for a dismissal, as Bangladesh did, is simply poor sportsmanship and dirty pool. There's no excuses for this. This isn't a man-cad, which in itself is legal anyway. It's not a Bairstow versus Aussie in the Ashes where he left his crease without grounding the bat. And again, that is a fair dismissal, if a little underhanded. This was a broken chin strap. The batsman wanted a replacement because he needs a helmet to protect his head from getting hit by the ball and becoming the next Philip Hughes. Now, the BBC, bless their hearts, have frame by framed it. They've timed it all out, and they say that from the time the ball landed in the fielder's hands for the previous wicket to when Mathews touched his chin strap was 1 minute 54 seconds. So he's well within the 2 minute time anyway. And anyway, it's an equipment failure. Come on, man. The rules are the rules, and sometimes they're an arse. Not this time. What Bangladesh did was outside the spirit of the laws. It was low-rent backstabby and demonstrated a complete lack of class.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Headlines, Lachlan. Sports headlines.
Where to start? I'll start off with cricket. We didn't hear it at the top of our news there from Raul, but as you sort of described a little bit there, Martin, Sri Lankan cricketer and captain of the Sri Lankan cricketer. He is the captain, isn't he? I think he's the captain. Yeah. Angelo Mathews has become the first batter to be timed out in international cricket during the Cricket World Cup match against Bangladesh today. Mathews wasn't ready to face his first ball within the I always struggle with this word, stipulated. There we go. Stipulated 2 minutes as the strap of his helmet appeared to be broken and he called for a replacement helmet. We'll talk more about this later on in the show. The Black Caps will begin their next World Test Championship campaign with a spin-heavy squad to visit Bangladesh later this month after the current World Cup. A new look coaching lineup led by Luke Ronke will feature specialist spinners Ajaz Patil and Ish Sodhi alongside spin all-rounders Mitch Santner, Rachin Ravindra and Glenn Phillips. Ravindra's also earned a recall into the Test team. Didn't play for them the last time they were playing some red ball cricket. Sam Kane, All Blacks captain Sam Kane, I bet he's stoked for this. He's heading back to school. Tackle school. He's received a 3-game suspension following his red card in the Rugby World Cup final against the Springboks. Super Rugby news, Moana Pacifica coach Tana Umanga, the new coach at the franchise, has selected fellow former, well, I don't know if you can call them a franchise. They don't really operate like a franchise, but I'll call them a franchise. I don't want to call them a club. He has selected fellow former Blues mentor Tom Coventry and former Welsh international Stephen Jones as his assistants for next season. Stephen Jones played over 100 tests for Wales, and he was the Welsh attack coach until the end of last year when then head coach Wayne Pivac was replaced by Warren Gatland. The Barbarians are at the centre of an alleged sexual assault scandal after one of their Rugby World Cup players was accused by 3 women of attacking them in a Cardiff nightclub. 37-year-old Fijian forward Api Ratuniyarawa, I hope I've pronounced that right, Ratuniyarawa, was charged with sexually penetrating 2 women with his finger and with touching the breast and body of a 3rd woman, and appeared before Cardiff Magistrates Court on Saturday night, New Zealand time. Premier League this morning, Chelsea took on Tottenham at home to Tottenham. They went up 1-0, but then a couple of red cards saw Chelsea manage to claw their way back and win that 4-1. So many stoppages, so many random things going on. There was penalties, red cards, there was so many disallowed goals, and Chelsea scored the 3 winners, should I say. In the 75th minute, Nicholas Jackson scoring, then he added 2 more in stoppage time to make it 4-1. The rebel group holding Luis Diaz's father hostage has demanded security guarantees before his release. If you're unaware of the story, Luis Diaz, a winger for Liverpool, both his parents were kidnapped back home in Colombia. His mother has been rescued, but his father remains a hostage. The National Libertarian Army said the ongoing military and police search will delay the release and increase the risks. This according to Colombian media. And of course, being it's the first Tuesday of November, this race takes place. The Melbourne Cup, it's on today. We'll have Butch Castles on the show today to run through the favourites and who you should be splashing your dough on. The race begins just after 5 p.m. New Zealand time. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
So Angelo Mathews then. Only the 7th cricketer ever to be dismissed under this timed out rule. And the weird thing about it is, as I said earlier, that in international cricket, the ICC have made it 2 minutes. So from the time that the last batsman is out till you get to the crease face up and are ready, you've only got 2 minutes. In all other cricket, it's 3 minutes. Anyway, he gets there. Apparently, he had 6 seconds to spare. Notices his helmet strap's broken, wants to replace it. No. Bangladesh appeal, and he gets dismissed. Is that fair? Craig Cumming, former Black Cap, played both tests and one days for us on exactly that. It's not a man cad, which is legal anyway. It's not a bearstow, which might have been a little underhanded, but that's legal as well. This is just a weird one, isn't it? Surely a guy is allowed to replace his helmet.
Yeah, I mean, it's the timed out rule, where you've got 2 minutes to get out and face your first ball. Angelo Mathews walked out, took his guard, and then went to clip the helmet properly, and it broke. So then, theoretically, they said that he didn't have didn't face the ball. He tried to get the helmet replaced, and then good old Shakib Hassan made an appeal. And, he, under the laws of the game, they decided that he hadn't faced the ball within 2 minutes, so he was given out, timed out, which, when you look at it just actually, Marty, it's junk. It's rubbish. It's Bangladesh, Shakib, who in some ways should never be playing the game. If you've seen some footage of him playing in a game, he went and ripped the stumps out and just about threw them at the umpire. There is the spirit of the game, and it's if the laws always override the spirit. But this one is absolute junk, and Bangladesh should look themselves in the mirror and be very embarrassed. And I'd say, well, they probably won't be, Marty. And I'm saying, Matthews has probably got some history as well on certain things, but when it comes to the game of cricket, a guy's about to face his first ball and his helmet breaks. I mean, goodness sake, you let him replace it. You don't appeal and get him, out without facing a ball. It's just, that is absolute junk. We've talked about, many different things in the last month when it comes to sport, but this one's right at the top of it.
And it's every sport I'm watching. I was watching Chelsea versus Spurs today, and the lack of common sense in the VAR and the way that's employed. We look at the TMO in the World Rugby final and the lack of common sense. It just seems that for whatever reason, we've just created this scaredy-catness around sport where gentlemen can't actually stand up and behave like gentlemen and just say, listen, no. I don't care what the rules are. This is absolutely and utterly an incident where common sense overrides everything else. We don't want another Philip Hughes here. If that guy gets hit and his helmet falls off and he gets hit in the head, then what? I mean, you just know what the circumstances could potentially be and how disastrous. It's just so simple. His helmet's bloody broke. Let him replace it, mate.
Oh, yeah. Again, I was flabbergasted. I mean, the Bairstow one, you argue rightly and wrongly, different sides. But at the end of the day, we see that a lot in the games, and most cricketers have probably tried it in their life. You've got, certain parts of games, but this one is just absolutely, again, I can't swear, Marty, but it's actually embarrassing that Bangladesh would like to do that or even think about doing that. It's just embarrassing. And I mean, it's a little bit like, every team, I mean, we're about to go over and play them a test series. You should just about say, no, we're not going. We're not going. You guys can go and play in your own backyard with your own rules and, come and join the big boys when you actually sort your stuff out. Because, this is, again, pinnacle of the sport. There's nothing on at these games, but, there is, it just gets to a stage, Marty, where you shake your head and, I suppose as people who, coach teams and look after teams, you just make sure that you'd never allow that to happen in your environment. But unfortunately it didn't. As I say, hopefully when they finish the game that no one will talk to them because that's what they deserve. That might be a bit harsh, but they've made that decision. They should lie in the bed that they've made.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. More on Angelo Mathews. We want a whole variety of opinions on this. Graeme Beasley, Sportsfreak. He runs the sportsfreak.co.nz website. His thoughts. Did Bangladesh do the right thing, or should Angelo? This is the rules, Graeme. Within the rules, that is the rules, apparently. But again, common sense. Where is the common sense?
Yeah, exactly. No, they definitely do the right thing. Since that timed out rule was put in place, there have been over 61,000 first-class matches, and this is the sixth time someone's been ruled out.
Next! But it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to play your favourite game, Lachlan, which is what is more chance of happening? Next! I read you a couple of scenarios and you tell me out of the two what has more chance. Mm-hmm. Sri Lanka beat the Black Caps on Thursday and kill our semi-final hopes.
Good chance.
The VAR does not make another single cock-up for the whole of the rest of the
Sri Lanka
EFL.
beats the Black Caps, absolutely. There's no point even getting into that. Okay, we're not halfway through the season, and we've had, off the top of my head, 3 games with glaring issues.
3 games where results should have been either reversed or readjusted. Starting with Man United at home to Wolves, which was a blatant penalty and injury time where Onana bowled that guy. Yep. Liverpool at Spurs.
Yep. And then
Arsenal versus Newcastle, that goal should
Arsenal,
not have
Newcastle, yep. There was, and I, to an extent, would suggest today, because I don't think that Spurs player should have been sent off.
I don't think
the
so
first
either.
one. The first one. Second one, definitely. First one, no.
The first one, he hits the ball first. Now, if you hit the ball with your foot, and then the ball foot overrides the ball and hits the shin, well, you're hitting the ball first, aren't you?
Yeah. But what the commentators were saying, he's gone over the ball and got on the leg. No, he didn't. He got the ball. So, anyway. But no. Next! VAR and wrong decisions, controversial decisions, or just issues are all joined at the hip.
What has more chance of happening? Sri Lanka beat Well, actually, I tell you what, the way that the All Blacks have been playing over the last few years, and with the fact that one of those players leaving, and who's going to be 9 and 10 for us, maybe Sri Lanka do have a chance. But what is more chance of happening? Sri Lanka beat the Black Caps, or Eddie Jones is not announced as the new coach of Japan?
No, Sri Lanka beating the Black Caps, because I'm pretty damn sure
that
Black
Caps are going to beat Sri Lanka, mate. Just stop it, mate.
Well, we've lost 4 in a row. We've got so many injuries. You never know. And look, what else?
Trent Bolt has got to turn up and be Trent Bolt at some stage. You've got to expect that.
Well, he's still in the UAE playing his T20 leagues.
So disappointed with this. I was so
Well, he had a
amped
great-
and pumped at the fact that he was coming back to play because he's Trent Bolt and he's Bolty and he wants to play for New Zealand. He's so proud of wearing the silver fern and he's Bolty and he's Trenty and he's Bolty.
It was either his...
You're not playing well, mate. I don't give a stuff what your name
but
is.
it was either one of the warm-ups or I think a couple of our early games at this tournament that he actually was playing quite well and he's just fallen off. Is there any other job that Eddie Jones could have?
Well, now that we've had the Moana Pacifica assistant coaches named as Tom Coventry and Stephen Jones, he's obviously not part of that coaching try. So anyway, what is more chance of happening, Lachlan?
Next!
Sri Lanka do a number on us, beat the Black Caps on Thursday night, or there is a huge and sudden upsurge in worldwide global interest in the last two GPs of the Formula One season.
Actually, there will be for the next one. Because you know where the next one is?
Japan.
No. Vegas.
Ah, okay.
First time ever.
Right.
So that one will be...
Will it be...
That'll be an absolute show, for people going there.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people like myself will watch it because it's a Grand Prix in Vegas.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
Well, providing that they race it down the strip and around all the casino. Oh, all
Have
of
you
that,
seen the
okay.
track?
Oh, I haven't, so...
No, well, they're part of the track is the strip. I'm pretty sure.
Who's the F1... No, the Red Bull boss who said that they don't need Taylor Swift there this year or
Christian
something?
Horner.
What a dickhead. Hey? Everyone needs Taylor. Everyone needs Taylor Swift everywhere, mate. Yes, more Taylor Swift. Everyone
Stop it.
looks
No,
and watches, mate.
You're just saying this to annoy me. No, move on. Not everyone
So
needs
if we get
Taylor
Taylor
Swift.
on tomorrow, you say, no, the platform sports show does not need...
We need Taylor Swift. F1, the NFL don't.
Oh, the NFL loves it, mate. I mean,
I know, which is turning off the NFL fans.
Well, it is actually. It's a good
They're
point.
still watching the games, but, it's annoying
I'm just
them.
over it now, I mean, what? So Taylor Swift is there. What are the stats?
40 seconds ago, you were saying everyone needs Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I just did a Bangladesh, mate. I just rewrote the rules. Finally, from this particular bunch, what is more chance of happening? Sri Lanka do beat the Black Caps on Thursday, and Raul will join us to talk about this at about 3:30. Or Bangladesh reflect overnight on Matthews' dismissal and publicly admit that they're wrong and that they apologise. That would be the manly thing to do. That would be the manly thing to do, wouldn't it? That would be the decent thing to do. In the heat of battle, and these are the words that Shakib, their captain, used. He said, I felt like I was in a war out there and I made that decision. You're not in a war. You're playing a game of one-day cricket, so pull your head in for a start, mate.
Well, at least you asked Rory Kane.
But, you made the decision. The decent thing to do would be to say, apologise, I got it wrong. We should have actually let him adjust his helmet. Well, no, I mean, you've still won the game. You're not going through to the semi-finals regardless. At least save some face. Wouldn't that be the right thing to do?
Yeah, but I don't know. There's a chance.
What is more chance of happening?
Yeah, there's a chance that it happens, and there's a chance that Sri Lanka. But can I say tied? Can I give this a tie? Both have as much chance of each other happening. Does that make sense? Both have as much chance as each other of happening. There we go. That's what I'll say.
They both have as much chance of the other one happening.
Yes.
Oh, well, let's do one more then in that case because we need a tiebreaker. What is more chance of happening, Lachlan? Sri Lanka beat the Black Caps and do it in a way that means we don't make the semi-finals.
Well, Pakistan will need to win, and they'd probably need to win with a nice total, and we'd have to really put the beard at the crease.
Or mainstream media, and I'm talking about the sports newsrooms in this country, acknowledge the truth about women's rugby.
The Sri Lanka beating the All Blacks.
Interest, and this whole hype machine that they built upon after the Rugby World Cup final last year is the load of BS that I've been saying for the last 12 months that it is.
No, Sri Lanka have much more chance of beating the... There's no point even entertaining such a thing.
TV1 News did do the story about the English rugby captain saying that, New Zealand crowds were poor during that series, but they did it because she said it. But no sports journalist in this country is prepared to actually hand up, own up and admit, maybe we did, Oh, look, I feel so disappointed. I'm not hacking women's rugby, but I feel so disappointed because I just feel that the sport has been let down. It's been let down by this absolute tripe-fed mainstream media plus the National Administration who thinks that throwing $22 million at women's rugby is the answer.
Well, this is the thing. We said this at the end of the tournament last year, that this has been a great 4, 5, 6, however long it went on, 4, 5, 6 weeks It's been wonderful for the sport. Great to see Eden Park packed out. Now is the time to take advantage of
Yes.
it. This is where you put your brains to work.
Yeah.
If you're in these
First
positions,
and foremost, you get your best players playing in your domestic competitions.
but you guys are in these positions of power because you're supposedly the best people to do the job. Now go out there and grow women's rugby.
How can you not call the Super Rugby OPICI and the Women's NPC not fit for purpose if you are calling that the NPC is not fit for purpose, Mark Robinson? How can you not use that same label on those competitions given the fact they earn no money, they have no spectators, they have no television viewers? It's time, ATM episode number 60. Martin Devlin back from France. The inimitable, indomitable Mark Watson, broadcaster of international class and quality, joining us.
Apologise to me!
The Kiwis, brilliant win, couldn't pull a crowd though. The Black Ferns, well, we've been saying this, you and me, for a year, and we've been the only media voices that have been saying it. The truth is, there was no explosion, there is no growth. That women's rugby's in the same position it was before the World Cup last year. Same as women's football. These two tournaments bring people out because they have glamour and glitz attached, and we're just absolutely saturated with the blanket coverage across all media, which is bought and paid for by World Rugby and by FIFA. But when it comes to what happens next, well, we've got a Black Fern side that sold out Eden Park that can't sell out Mount Smart against an England team replaying that cup final. We've got a Phoenix women's team that barely get mums and dads going along. This is where women's sport is in this country, and I'm sick to death of having it rammed down my throat that all of a sudden that we are meant to be watching this, we should be watching this. Who the hell is it that isn't watching it? And it's not you and me, mate. It is all the people that went to those finals, and that's where the finger's got to be pointed. How come you want to go and watch that, but you don't want to watch the domestic product?
Look, you put World Cup around anything and people are going to go for a novelty factor, mate. I was last week up at the Asian Para Games, most magnificent stadium on a Saturday, mate. The stadium filled up. There must have been 50 or 60,000 people in it. They weren't there because they're interested in para athletics. They were there because it was the Asian Para Games and all these countries were there, and it was presented beautifully, and it was a bit of a novelty, and there was a real curiosity around it. And that's what happens with any major event that comes to our shores. It's about capitalising on it. Look, this has got nothing to do. People not watching women's rugby has got nothing to do with sexism. It's got nothing to do with chauvinism. The reality is, mate, the product's not good enough. It's a product that's in its infancy. It is a minority sport, and there needs to be studies done around why women in this country just don't seem to want to turn up and watch live sport, or if they do turn up and watch live sport, why is it they possibly still prefer to watch the men's game? And as much as this feminist movement, which exists in a lot of our media, are so desperate to push their agenda and so desperate for this thing called equity and equality, the reality is, mate, it's a false narrative and it's a false economy. But look, I think too, and I keep saying this, Martin, when it comes to events now, as a nation, we have evolved. We're no longer just rugby, racing and beer. We're a country who celebrate our outdoors. We've got so many sports to choose from now. But I think in regards to entertainment, there's an oversupply and a lack of demand. And it's not just in a sporting sense. I know there was an AMP show on out at Clevedon over the weekend, and I had some friends that said they went out to that and couldn't believe the number of people that were out there watching that. And so, sport has to be better and has to be more entertaining. We've talked about this, the quality of food, the cost to get in. See, Women's Rugby World Cup were brilliant last year in terms of their pricing structure. They made it $5 and $10 to get in. So they weren't over the top and it was affordable. But I think, they've created this problem themselves because, the last year they were telling us that the Women's Rugby World Cup final was getting more cut through and there was more interest in it, the Men's World Cup final from 2015, and we're having all this sort of propaganda shoved down our throat. And me and you know that, look, at the end of the day, this was never going to be sustainable. People are not going to go and watch this team. They're not going to go and watch a lot of women's sport like football, like rugby. However, I will say this, and I keep saying it, I think sports like women's track and field on par with the men's. I think women's swimming on par with the men's. A lot of the women's golf you watch these days in terms of the quality on par with the men's stuff. But there are just certain sports that are still in their infancy and they need time to grow. But you're right, it's amazing how silent the media have been around this. Big article on BBC from the English captain talking about the lack of crowds that are turning up to watch. But it's not just women's sport. I mean, where was the crowd for the Kiwis? Why take it to Hamilton in the first place? But where was the crowd for the Kiwis? That should have been a sellout. I mean, it's been a wonderful year for rugby league. I don't know, did everybody just believe the Kangaroos were going to thump the Kiwis like they had done the week before? No one's watching the Phoenix. Crowd numbers for cricket are right down. The only team that still seem to be selling out is when the All Blacks do play, and then I'll argue that's going to end up in times, not necessarily it'll sell out, but it's not going to sell out in the first 6 weeks. So, look, I think sport's got some real challenges in this country. As I said, you go to a couple of sports games and you go, well, been there, done that. What else is out there to stimulate me? What else is different? But also I think the comfort of home, the big screen televisions, the convenience of it all. I think live sport's got some real challenges, which then, Martin, puts the economic model of sport at risk. How do we pay our players if no one's turning up and no one's watching this? And, I just want some balance from our media. Why can't we just come out and be honest and say, look, rugby is still at a women's level. With what we've seen, it's actually still just an amateur game, and it should remain an amateur game. And if you want to play, you're playing because you want to play for the black jersey and potentially maybe picking up some endorsements privately because companies do want to align themselves with women's rugby.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, so roughly a minute or so on each of those. And when the bell, we move on to the next topic. Sam Kane, red card, 3 matches, and he goes back to tackling school. He's the All Black captain. Does he really need to go back to tackling school? Although Brodie Retallick, I suppose, was put through the same thing at the World Cup. Spurs Chelsea. Well, just what a schmozzle of a game that was today. VAR fanning around, as Ange Postecoglou, you heard here in the news. You just feel like you're waiting forever for decisions to be made. Is that what we really want with football? Angelo Mathews, first batsman to be timed out in international cricket ever. And that happened overnight. Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh. Rugby World Cup fallout. What have you learned since you got back from France, Lachlan? What I've learned is that people just are nonplussed these days. And All Black loss just doesn't mean anything to people as much as it used to. Ian Foster's wife and daughter attempted hold up in Paris. Well, you can detail your story, Lachlan, which was pretty damn scary itself. Melbourne Cup, NBA to talk as well. But let's kick it off, though, with Sam Kane, his red card. Expected, 3 matches, no major surprise. He's got a sabbatical, of course, like every...
So those 3 matches will be when he's playing in Japan, right?
Yeah, well, he misses, I think one of them he gets off because he's going to go to tackling school, and then the other 2 he misses the first 2 in Japan.
Tackling school.
We've got some Super Rugby audio from Tom Coventry and Stephen Jones a little later on because MP Moana Pacifica had a press conference today. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the Super Rugby squads are going to be announced on Thursday to much fanfare, hype and interest all around the country. Woohoo. They just can't seem to get it right, can they, Rugby? You just, whatever it was, every egg in the All Black basket, and that failed, so now bloody what?
Why can't they announce it in Feb?
Well, because I suppose they got to do pre-season training.
Well, they can just not announce it.
I mean, does it really change your life at all knowing who's in those squads? I mean, if the players know, then the players know. But it should be a draft system. This is off the topic, by the way. But it should be some kind of draft system. It should be a celebration when these things happen, shouldn't it?
Well, they need
Instead, it just feels like, God, you've dumped it now because there's nowhere else to put it.
Well, this is I think once the World Cup's done and it's over. Every year when the test season for the All Blacks is done, rugby's done.
It's like the NRL after the grand final. I think that's why it struggled to get crowds during the Pacific Championship Series because you just feel like rugby
leagues. There was about a 2 or 3 week gap between the NRL grand final and when it, you needed.
Anyway, Sam Kane, red card, 3 matches. Tackling school. It's just box ticking to me, isn't it? Just tell the guy.
Can you refuse tackling school?
No, well, if you can, but then you just get an extra weekend.
I'd refuse it.
But what it means is then you get a black mark on the thing the next time, and then.
No, it just means you serve for full suspension, surely, as opposed to serving 1 game fewer.
I mean, can you imagine? To me, it's just a complete and utter waste of time. The guy knows what he did wrong. He's played 1,000 games of rugby in his life. He's either going to do it again or he's not going to do it again. Is going to tackling school going to stop him?
What is tackling school? Well, do you just sit in a room and get shown a PowerPoint?
You know those when we were at
do you actually tackle people?
When we were at Roland Garros, right, and we saw the people from World Rugby.
Oh.
Having meetings with each other about meetings, right? Yeah. That's who it is. You've got a whole lot of people on a Zoom call who'll be sitting there. None of them have ever played rugby before. And they'll just typing out memos and emails, and they'll be sitting there looking at it going, okay, so he's tackled that tackle bag at under the line. Tick. Okay, he did that. He's fulfilled that. He's done it twice now. That's another tick.
Can you fail tackle school? What happens if you fail?
Well, I think you'd be a complete and utter moron if that's the case, isn't it? I mean, it's like any punishment, isn't it?
These are rugby players, not the smartest blokes.
You know, you get told, don't smoke at school, you're going to get 6 on the backside of the cane. You get caught again, you get 6 on the back. Come on, man.
It's just a joke. The whole tackle school thing is stupid. The players, I think it's been drilled into them enough by rules that have changed over the last couple of years, particularly by their, when they're in trainings and with their coaches and whatnot. I'm pretty damn sure it's been drilled because they don't want to miss games.
No, they don't. And they don't want to be sent off in a World Cup final, do they?
Why send them to a tackle school? It's incredible.
Because it is box ticking, mate. It's box ticking from World Rugby because of the lawsuits is what it is. We're doing everything we can to stop this.
Yeah. Look, tackle school. Look at all these people who went there and graduated.
Speaking of administrative sporting idiocy, Spurs versus Chelsea today. Is this what you want to see? One of the greatest things about the Premier League I love the emotion, I love the singing, I hate the word passion, it's overused in sport, but there is that. It's just comes roaring out of your TV set. It's blood and guts and thunder and rock and roll on a football field. It's non-stop, the English game. I love it. But it's now stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, start, stop, start. Are we better off with VAR? And why are we still talking about this? Because all of the sports I love now, all we talk about is the goddamn referees and the TMOs and the VARs and the bunkers.
Well, just before the VAR was brought into the Premier League, everyone was talking about all these calls that were missed and, it'll be so much better when VAR turns up. And when it was used at the 2018 FIFA World Cup, which I'm pretty sure was the first time it was used in football,
right.
It went pretty damn well. There weren't any major controversies. And then there has been ever since it got into the Premier League. There's always going to be something to complain about. We love complaining.
Yes.
There's always, after the Rugby World Cup final, you said it really well on the show yesterday. Had we won that final, no one would be batting an eye about Wayne Barnes and the TMO.
No. Well,
but because we lost, we wanted to blame someone. Same with 07 in that quarterfinal. If we'd managed to win that match, we wouldn't be getting all worked up about it. So, and Sportsfreak said a good thing actually as well, where he said it has it's better with it than it would be without it, because there would be many calls that are missed. I guess the big issue...
There's always been calls that have been missed.
That's the thing. The big issue, though, is how it impacts the pace of the game. How long it takes for games to... sport is entertaining. Something that's entertaining is not something that isn't happening.
Yeah,
Guys standing around looking at screens. That's not entertaining.
Plus, also, what you're doing is you're ruling on things which take more than a split second to rule upon. Like that first red card for Tottenham today. Many of us could be staring at that. Half of the audience would be saying that's a red card. Half of the audience is saying it's not a red card. So that's not... VAR hasn't helped that situation one bit. No. Because that should come down to the referee on the field.
And that then comes down to the argument of, can you really fairly rule on something when you slow it down to such a slow speed?
No, you can't, because as Steve Hansen says, you're not watching it and reffing it in replay. You're watching it in real time.
Yeah.
And again, if you can't decide in real time, let the guy that's got the job on the field decide.
What'll probably happen, and it could well happen with VAR in the next year or so, is that they either completely overhaul it or they just get rid of it flat out and give control back to the refs.
Yes,
and then about 3 or 4 years after that, we're going to be back to square one.
Well, I mean, look,
offsides are missed, penalties are missed.
I don't trust the technology enough to even believe the offside line that they're putting.
Well, who's operating it? Humans. You can't get rid of human error.
Angelo Mathews, first batsman to be timed out in international cricket. We began the show with this. Disgraceful from Bangladesh. It really is. I mean, there are safety aspects in these games, and they, to me, are more important than anything else. If a guy's helmet gets broke, as I said, if he had faced the first ball, he could then take 10 minutes to fix his helmet. It is just words and rubbish words is what it is, written in a rule book that have been followed by the letter, and nobody has got... Because it hasn't happened in international cricket before, and this is a precedent, nobody's actually able to go, listen, this doesn't make any sense, which means it's nonsense. Let the guy replace his bloody helmet.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what would happen if he got hit on the head and he did die like Philip Hughes? Well, then there'd be massive lawsuits.
Yeah, exactly. But I said it earlier that in any sports match, and cricket is absolutely one of these, where I think there's this misconception that cricket is a gentleman's game, and it's not, mate. It's not. They dress well. It's played at a slow pace. You've got your scones and cream and jam and tea and whatnot, and all these well-dressed men watching in attendance, especially if you're at Lord's. But it's a game that has always been rife with controversy and issues and legalities, illegalities, if that makes sense. Just betting. Anyway, when it comes to what Bangladesh have done, it wouldn't shock me if any team in cricket did that, because you're looking for every way to win a match, and anyone would do it. You know, we would expect like the Australian cricket team to do it. We'd probably expect the English cricket team to do it. We'd expect any subcontinent cricket team to do it. And look, Kiwis would act like we wouldn't. We probably would. If it gets you the win, you do it. It's a bit like the Mancat and whatnot.
Yeah,
so anyway, my point is that what Bangladesh did isn't necessarily wrong. What's worse is what the officials did. They mistimed it. They shouldn't have. It's your job to officiate the game properly, and they didn't.
Rugby World Cup fallout. We'll talk to Justin Marshall about this tomorrow. What have you learned since you've got back? What I've learned is that people are pretty apathetic, and I don't know whether this is just now or whether this is a hangover from 2019. But this particular All Black side, under Ian Foster, we are so used to them losing. You know, all of those unwanted records. First group stage loss. Biggest loss ever against South Africa before the World Cup. Losing to Ireland at home first time. Losing a test series at home to Ireland for the first time. Losing a test series at home for the first time since 1994. Losing to Argentina. Losing to Argentina at home. One after the other after the other. We've just been dulled by it. Getting thrashed by England in the 2019 semi-final. Now we lose in the final. I mean, look, after 1995, this went on for years. After 1999, we were still talking about on Radio Sport 5 years later. It just seems to me that people go, oh, okay, the All Blacks are lost again and we move on now. This is what has happened in a generation. Because yesterday, Lachlan, we were talking about Australian rugby marking the anniversary yesterday when they won the World Cup in 1999. 24 years later, that sport does not exist in Australia. It's dead. Is this the beginning of the end for us, where the All Blacks lose and the country doesn't care that much anymore about it? Does that mean that a whole generation is going, oh, yeah, well, the All Blacks, of course they lose. That's what they do. They just lose, you know?
Well, the way to answer that would be to ask yourself, when you were a kid, right up until now, what is it that has attached you to the All Blacks for so long up until this point? What was it that made you fall in love with the All Blacks?
Oh, they always won.
Was that it? Was it purely the winning side of it?
Well, when I started watching in 1975, and then we lost in South Africa in 76, heartbroken. But they were our team. You've got to remember there was no sport on the TV. It was one of the only sports that you could see live on TV was rugby. And it only happened 2 or 3 times a year. Then in 77, the Lions came here. And we won that one. Then in 78, we went on the Grand Slam tour for the first time ever, won that. So I sort of grew up with the All Blacks just fighting and scrapping and winning these games.
I actually reckon part of it, and I think that the team right up until 2015 with that core group of players, you know, Richie McCaw, Dan Carter, Comrade Smith, Martin Nunu, like all of these guys, I think, as much as they're celebrities in New Zealand and some of them around the world, like, this is just a guess. They're not dickheads. They're decent enough people. You know,
true.
I can say that. I feel like, you know,
and we've met them a lot.
We've met them, you know, and they're great people to deal with and whatnot. Yep. And I think one of the things that made the All Blacks really relatable, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am, is that up until it was professional, there were average ordinary blokes who had other jobs, who like you know, Colin Meads and what was his brother's name? Stan Meads?
Stan.
You know, worked on a farm, for goodness sake. You know, they did normal
Sir
human
John Kerwin
things.
worked in a bank.
Yeah.
No, a butcher shop. Sorry, Jonah worked in a bank.
Normal human things. There was an element of normalcy to it. And when you're the middle class or just regular people like you and I, you know, that's something that you relate to, just standard, normal, decent human beings. And I'm not saying the current All Blacks team isn't that, but one thing I wonder when the game's turned professional, maybe in some way, the way it's developed, the current crop of players, they've grown up their whole lives with the idea of being a rugby player only that full-time, that immediately, especially if you're a talented player and you're told that all through school, especially high school, and you get straight into an academy and whatnot, you don't live a normal life, and you've got this, there's a different element to you and your personality and who you are.
Yeah, I agree.
And I wonder if that just distances you more from regular people.
Look, we were there at the coalface from here to, you know, your car away. I mean, like, honestly, we were there as close as you get to the players. And I'm not being, you know, I don't want to be mean about it, and I don't feel it's being critical about it, but I find that there's a lot of these players I just can't relate to at all. I have nothing in common with them at all. I mean, okay, I'm a much older person and so forth, but their lives, their attitudes, the way that they behave towards you, they just don't seem to give that much of a rat's. You know, they care about their Instagram accounts, they care about the amount of money they're earning, they care about what pretty girls are waiting outside. I just don't kind of get that they're as intrinsically linked to our lives in New Zealand and playing for our country as teams have in the past. When Sia Khaleesi said all that after the Rugby World Cup final, that this means so much to South Africa. We are bonded as one for our country. You've got to come to South Africa to understand what it means. There's no All Black could have said that and it would have meant anything. And I just think there's a disconnect now between that team, the amount of money that they earn, their lifestyles, and the general public.
But what's changed so much in, say, 20, 25 years?
Well, it's all, I don't know whether professionalism done. I don't know what's that, but but this is all to me part of the same jigsaw puzzle. The public don't care as much. They don't care as much about the public. And that's just what I'm getting. I would have expected the country to be in apoplexy. We've lost another Rugby World Cup final. Crikey, that's now 12 years between, right? 24 years it was the last big gap. Now it's half of that before we go to Australia, right?
Yeah.
And we've just lost 8 or 9 of our best players. Who's playing 9 and 10 next year? Roygard and Damo? Are they?
Yeah, I guess so.
Really? That's a world-class international 9 and 10 pairing right there. That's winning test matches for New Zealand, isn't it?
I don't know the answer.
Angelo Mathews, and we're still talking about it, and so we should talk about it because we don't want this ever to happen again in international cricket. Or do we? Or do we? Do we want international cricket to turn into VAR, TMO, and just be bogged down in silly little rules and umpires stopping the game to check exactly what the wording is around those rules? Raul Patil, who is our man on the ground at the One Day Cricket World Cup. His thoughts. All right, a lot of controversy overnight, and we've been talking about this extensively on the show today. Sri Lanka 279, Bangladesh chased it down easy, won by 3 wickets with 53 balls remaining. That's 282 for 7. But the dismissal of Angelo Mathews for being timed out, the first time it's ever happened in international cricket. Walk us through it.
Right, so what happens is a wicket falls and Angelo Mathews is supposed to come to the crease and be ready to face the first delivery, and he's got a time of 2 minutes to do this. He comes to the crease well in time, but as he is getting ready to face up, the strap of his helmet snaps off and he gestures towards the dressing room saying, "I need another helmet." The substitute fielder runs in and brings him another helmet, but by that time, it's been 2 minutes already. And Shakib Ul Hasan, who was the Bangladeshi captain, appeals to the umpire saying, "Hey, it's been longer than 2 minutes and he's not yet ready to face his first delivery." Umpires consult, upheld the appeal, and he was given his marching orders. And Angelo Mathews was not a happy man.
Look, I've been reading a lot about it. It's, as I say, the first time in international cricket. It's happened 6 times before in domestic cricket, and some of the weirdest reasons around. Just in terms of the common sense aspect here, or playing within the spirit of the game, can we bring that into this? Put the rules to one side for a second. What are your thoughts on what they did?
I think from a common sense perspective, it shouldn't have been out. I mean, the guy is trying to protect his head. It's a freak incident that happens. He's tried to tighten his strap around, and I've had this happen to me a couple of times when I've played cricket, is some of your equipment just malfunctions and you need to get a replacement. I mean, we've seen people lose their life on a cricket field when they are not wearing a helmet. And I just think after all the controversy that we've had with refereeing and umpiring in rugby, and we've said that they are over umpiring and they are over refereeing, cricket has gone the other way, and we are under refereeing and under policing in cricket. And I think somewhere the umpires just need to step in and say, "Hey, this is not done. The guy's clearly trying to just protect his head. Let's just get on with this, and use some common sense." So I totally agree that common sense should have prevailed in this instance.
Yeah, when you actually add in that these guys know each other, Mathews and Shakib know each other. Apparently, they've been playing cricket against each other since 2006. They've been teammates in various one-day sides. So that makes it even more weird and confusing, doesn't it? Because you would expect, just from a human point of view, that if they're actually, reasonably good friends, or they are friendly enough, that you'd go, okay, I know what the rules are, but it just seems a really toady, a really petty thing to do in any sports game.
It does leave a bad taste in the mouth. And the only thing that I can think about is these two teams have a bit of history of a lot of unwanted business around cricket for a long time now. The fans really get into each other, and the players have had some ugly spats over the years. The other thing is Bangladesh have had a terrible, terrible World Cup. And it's been a long time since they've had any sort of success in any world event. And I just think if the pressure on Shakib to actually turn around and win this game, because again, remember, Bangladesh is a team that qualified directly for this World Cup. Sri Lanka has come from the qualifiers. So by the rankings itself, Bangladesh were under pressure to win this one. And I think that pressure to win at any cost has just made Shakib Al Hasan make some really poor decisions on the field yesterday and resulted in a very, probably the most controversial moment for a long, long time in the game.
What is going to be the fallout from this, do you think? I mean, what is the press reporting over there? Is there going to be some revisit of the rules? And what is the official ICC word on this?
So the official ICC word came out pretty quick. During the lunch break, the host broadcaster got the third umpire involved and had a chat to them. And he was crystal clear about the ruling, which said that if the batter is not ready, then he can be timed out if the opposing captain makes an appeal. So as far as the rules is concerned, they've covered their bases and said, no, we just followed the rule book. But I'm sure that after the dust settles, there will be a bit of a review, and it has happened in the past where ICC has gone back and made a few changes to and put some exceptions to the rule in place. So I'm sure it'll get relooked at whenever the technical committee of the ICC sits and has a chat about it. But for now, what the book says is Matthews has the lovely privilege of being the first batter to be timed out in an international game of cricket. So.
Yes, he's got that record, hasn't he? It's just, You know, when you actually go through some of the others, which are just, they're so comical. And I was, reading these off one of the sites today. One guy, and there's only been 6 times it's happened since 1987-88. One guy was not out overnight. He was delayed getting to the ground because there was flooding, so he couldn't actually make it to the ground, so he got timed out. There was one bloke talking to the team manager, and he didn't even attempt to reach the crease, so obviously he decided he didn't want to bat. There was another bloke that got timed out because he was still flying in from the West Indies, and so his plane hadn't arrived. He was on the team sheet, but he got timed out. There was another bloke who was suffering from a groin injury and was shuffling to the crease, couldn't get there in time, and so they timed him out, then he had to shuffle back. And the best one was another bloke who turned up and his name, Raul, wasn't on the team sheet, but he was dressed in his whites with his bat, and so they wouldn't let him bat, and they timed him out. So there is some amusement around it. But I agree with you. It's going to be, an incident that's going to be talked about long after this World Cup finishes. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.